My name is Frank Barrett and I work for the Department of Agriculture Forest Service in Johnstown Castle, Wexford. And I'm going to show you how to use the Copernicus Browser service to examine wind damage post-storm Darragh, storm Éowyn, using the Copernicus Browser service that's provided by the European Commission for viewing the Sentinel constellation of satellites. So the first thing to do is to find or locate the Copernicus Browser service. So we conduct a web search on Google, and the first result returned describes the Copernicus Browser as the Copernicus Browser being or making it possible to browse and download full resolution images from all Copernicus missions. And what we're going to do is use the Copernicus Browser to look at storm damage or potential storm damage on Sentinel-2 or in Sentinel-2 optical images. So when we click on the link, the Copernicus Browser opens in our web browser, and you can see it. The name appears in the top of the open tab. And we can choose to either log in anonymously or use the service rather anonymously without logging in, or to log in. In this case, in this example, I'm going to log into the service because more tools are available and services when you log in than when you use the service anonymously. So I'll click on the login button. Now you can see here that it's very quick to register. You simply log in your email. Any users of online services will be familiar with the login process. It's very quick. So when we log in successfully, you'll see a web map system. It's familiar to people obviously who've used Google Maps or Bing Maps. There's a series of tools on the right hand side of the screen, and then there's a tab here with visualize and search tools, and we can zoom in or pan around the map using standard web map tools. We're going to be looking at Sentinel-2 optical imagery, and if we look at the metadata or the descriptor text around Sentinel-2, you can see that Sentinel-2 provides high resolution images in the visible and infrared wavelengths to monitor vegetation, soil, water cover, idle waterways and coastal areas. The spatial resolution of Sentinel-2 imagery is either 10, 20 or 60 meters depending on the band or the wavelength. And the revisit time is 5 days. In other words, as the satellite revolves around the globe, its return time is 5 days. And then the common usage areas for Sentinel-2 imagery, optical imagery, is for the creation of land cover maps, land change detection, vegetation monitoring, and monitoring of burned areas. These are all application areas that we would be familiar with in a forestry context. So I can zoom into the area that I'm interested in using the map tools that would be familiar to people who use web mapping systems. But what I want to do is zoom to an area just to the south of Ballyconnell, so I can actually, if I zoom into a certain scale, I can type in the name of the area I'm interested in. Let's get Ballyconnell, Cavan, and it'll zoom to Ballyconnell here. So I'm interested in a forest to the south of Ballyconnell, this area, and you can see that the subcompartment or the forest boundaries are quite defined here. And in terms of the image that's currently visible, I'd like to see the latest imagery for this location, preferably post storm Darragh, storm Éowyn, so I can see what the forest looks like now in the present day, or as close to the present day as possible. So I can click this button. I can see that the image that's returned to the to the map window is an image from the 29th of January 2025. So I can see here what looks like storm damage, or definitely forest change of some description. But the only way to definitively determine that is to have a reference image or a base image before Storm Éowyn, Storm Darragh. What I can do here is add this current image from the 29th of January to a comparison tool, or what's called the compare panel. So I can click and add this image from the 29th of January 2025 to the compare panel, and I can see the little icon for the compare panel tool. There's a little one up here which indicates that an image has been added. And if I zoom out, just for a bit of context, and pan through images that have also been acquired at this location, if I go back in time, in other words, before Storm Darragh, Storm Éowyn, I could see that some of these images are cloud covered, or in this case it was around the time that we had the snowfall and wintry conditions. But I want to find a comparable image that's relatively cloud free. This image isn't too bad, but there's a lot of cloud in the image. It's kind of patchy, but there is an image from September the 6th 2024 that's fairly crisp, and I can see the boundaries quite well, and I can add this to the compare tool. Now I can see that there are two images. If I move my mouse over the compare panel, there's two images when I move it over the compare panel icon. If I click on this icon, I can see that the two images are visible here, one from the 29th of the 6th and one from the 29th of the 1st, i.e. post Storm Darragh and Storm Éowyn. And what I can do now, if I zoom in a little bit to get to the details, say I'm interested in this area specifically, I want to look at, well, what's happened here versus the image I had in September. I can switch between the two images, and I can see very clearly when the damage has occurred, or what the extent of the damage is rather. So I can see here, if I pan around the image, and I can have a base image, a reference image if you like, to compare the damage post and pre, I can see the extent of the wind damaged areas. So if I zoom up here again to the area that I'm specifically interested in, say around here, I can see that the sun is obviously low enough in the sky on the 29th of the January, because you can see the shadow that's been cast from the trees that are still standing, and you can see clearly there's been something that's happened here. There's been a change here. This is clearly, to me, this is clearly a wind-blown area. Now we could estimate a rough estimate of the hectares of damage using the measuring tool here, which when we can activate it. So I could, for example, digitize the area of damage to get a rough estimate, approximate estimate in terms of the hectares of damage. And this is 0.24 square kilometers. And if I go to my calculator here, it's 0.24 square kilometers. You can see that's 24 hectares worth of damage there. Or 0.25. So we can use the tools in the Copernicus Browser to get an approximate estimation of the area damaged. So depending on where you are in the country and whether or not the images are cloud free, you'll be able to look and compare one reference image versus another, pre and post storm, to determine the likely damaged area if damage is present. So if I zoom out and just look at an area in the south of Ireland, I could see for the 29th of the 6th it was cloudy. You can see here the individual tiles of the sentinel imagery. So if I select an area, you can see that this image from the 31st of the 1st is really very, very clear. So this is an area just to the west of Wexford town. And again, if I wanted to look at compare pre and post storm this forest in regard to for wind damage, I would add this particular image, add this to the compare tool, and I go back to a point in time where before Storm Darragh and Storm Éowyn, when I had a cloud-free image, and this doesn't look too bad. We'll just go back a little further. Again, that's not too bad, and I can add this to the compare tool. I click on the compare tool again, and I can see that the original images that I'd added earlier are still there, so I can remove these. This is from the 24th, and this one is from the 29th, and I can see my new images that I've added to compare from October and the 31st of January. I can use the split tool to compare the two images again to see is there any difference. Obviously there's some larch there. I can see that it was green maybe in October and it's less green in January. Or this could be a broadleaf stand actually here, which is still green. So that's how you would use the tool to compare images. If I go back to the main set of tools, I can look at false color imagery as well if I'm interested. And again, this tends to show up the difference between species. There's other bands that are available as well, but are maybe not so useful in a forestry context. There are other tools and data that are available within the browser to download images. So I can download if I have GIS capacity, I can actually download a geotiff of the area in question. So you could incorporate these data into your own GIS if you're minded. You can create a movie or an animation to show the change in time and create a little video or a GIF to show the change between multiple sets of images, for example, to show pre and post storm damage for a specific area or a group of polygons or forest areas. You can add data as well using the tools in the Copernicus browser should you wish to upload line data representing boundaries of forests or forest polygons to facilitate area estimates or identifying specific areas of interest. I hope you found this video useful.